Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to another live and another episode of Speak English Like a Leader. Today is going to be very great, exciting. We're going to talk about alternatives to please, the ones that will make you sound more natural and nuanced in English. Because we say please quite a lot, which is good. We're going to talk about that in a moment. I'm not really a part of the people who say, it's very trendy online to say don't say that but say this. No, do say please. It's actually important to be polite and have manners. But you can go one step further and add more flavor to your English, more nuanced. Um, and also more impact in the way you communicate. And that's what we're going to see in a moment. But before that, let me introduce myself briefly to those who do not know me. I do it in French. Let me check as well if I'm good on LinkedIn. I am. Welcome. Actually, if you are live, say hi. I see that a few people live. Say hi, say your name, say something. It's always happy to interact with you. And feel free to ask me any questions, to comment anything. So that's why it's alive. So back to who I am. If you do not know me in French, then back to English. Si vous ne me connaissez pas et que vous passez par ici, ben moi c'est Aurélie Didimo, aka Oh Really. Et moi, j'ai toujours été attirée par le monde international. J'ai décidé d'y entrer, premièrement, avec une carrière en droit international que j'ai vraiment aimé, mais ça c'est une autre histoire. Et en parallèle, je donnais déjà des cours de langue pour aider d'autres professionnels à entrer dans le monde international. Et il y a 7 ans déjà, j'ai décidé d'en faire mon métier un plein temps. Entre-temps, j'ai pu travailler avec plein de types de profils. Mais aujourd'hui, j'aide principalement les dirigeants à penser, parler, performer en anglais pour gagner en crédibilité, en impact et en opportunité à l'international. Je le fais grâce à ma méthode des 5 C basée sur le coaching, les neurosciences. Et d'ailleurs, si vous sentez que votre anglais ne reflète pas votre expertise et que vous voulez en savoir plus, ben parlons-en tout simplement, sans engagement. Je mettrai un lien en commentaire si vous souhaitez discuter avec moi. And we'll go back to the live. Oh, hi. Hi, Bernard. Welcome. It's nice to see you here today. Welcome. Get yourself comfortable. I'm just going to send the link if you want to talk to me. And that's it. Yeah, as you see, everything is live. So there we go. Okay, I think I'm live. I think we can hear me well. So we're going to get started with the topic of the day. So I hear a lot of people saying please, and is one of the words we learn and then we tend to repeat quite a lot, which, as I said at the beginning, it's good. If you use please, keep using it, please. It's important to be polite, to have manners, especially as you know, in a professional context. It's even more important to be able to connect and show respect in the way you speak to other people. But if you always use the same word, your communication may start sounding very repetitive, maybe not always even sincere, or it will sound maybe less natural, less nuanced. And one way to sound better, to sound more fluent at the end of the day, or more polished in English, is simply to diversify the way you ask for things, the way you say things. And that's why here we're going to see some alternatives to please. And especially when you want to request something, because usually when do we use please? We use please when we want to ask something to someone, or when we have a request and we want to not be too direct, right? and so show some respect. So, without further ado, let's go for the one. First way, alternative to please. It's this one. Have you ever heard about this one? Would you mind? For example, as you can see it in the screen, would you mind sending me the updated version? This one is very useful when you want to sound polite and collaborative and respectful, and you don't want to be too direct saying, send me the correct version. And even if you use the please there, send me the correct version, please, it may sound a bit aggressive. So please sometimes is not enough, let's say. So here, to be more polished, you could say, would you mind doing this? Would you mind sending this message for me? Would you mind closing the door after you leave my office? Okay. Um, so the best way to learn them is to practice them. So if you're listening to me, whether live or the replay, and I know many of you are watching the replay, well, apply it. Write an example. You can write it in the comment sections or on your notes and write a question with, would you mind? Would you mind doing something with ing? Do not forget that. All right, so would you mind creating your own example to practice? Because if we don't practice, well, we may forget everything. And the idea is to be able to practice it and use it. All right, let's move on to the next one. A second alternative is if you could. Have you heard about this one? For example, if you could share the figures before tomorrow, that would be great. This one is simple, professional, and also very common in meetings or emails, for example. So, again, other ideas. If you could comment something, that would be great. For example, instead of saying again, please comment something or please share the figures, these sounds get more nuanced with more flavor if you could. And when you are speaking, remember to also use the tone of your voice to add even more nuance to the way you speak. If you could share the figures, you hear my voice changes. So yeah. Oh, well done, Bernard. Would you mind checking if my sentence is correct? Your sentence is correct. Congrats. So just very tiny detail in English, we don't put the space between the question mark and the last word, but your question is your comment, sorry, is excellent. So well done. So going back to if you could, again, well, same principle. The best way to learn what we're doing right now is to practice it. So create your own sentence. If you could share your own sentence in the comment sections, or if you could just write it for yourself. This I don't mind. For me, for you, actually, it is for you. As long as you do it, you are going to learn. Moving on to the third one. A third way of saying it is, would you be so kind as to? This one is a bit more formal, right? So you might not say that to your friend, but you might as well. It depends if you want to show some high respect at some point. So here the example is, would you be so kind as to confirm receipt of the document? Yeah, very, very formal way. What example, what else can I say? Would you be so kind as to sign the contract, for example? Instead of saying to someone, imagine you are having a contract with someone, and instead of saying, please sign the contract, again, It's not incorrect, but it sounds quite simple and it may sound a bit too direct. So you can go one step further and add more flavor, colors to the way, nuance to the way you speak, and also more professionalism to the way you express yourself in English, and say, would you be so kind as to sign the contract? Or would you be so kind as to send us a reply within the next 3 days if you want to give a deadline to someone and you don't want to sound too direct, too aggressive. Instead of saying please send us a reply, an answer within 3 days, you can say would you be so kind as to send a reply within 4 days. All right, so now you've got the example. Your turn. Create your own one. Would you be so kind as to write your own example? And that leads us to the fourth one already. That is, I'd appreciate it if. That's also another way, an alternative to saying yes. It's really good to sound professional and diplomatic. For example, I'd appreciate it if you could keep me updated. I'd appreciate it if you could call me in the next 5 days to talk about the progress of the project. Right? It sounds already a bit nicer, more fluent than please send call me in 5 days or whatever. Okay, so I'd appreciate it if. I actually really like this one personally. Sometimes you can have personal preferences. I like to show my appreciation, so I like this expression. I'd appreciate it if. Okay, so last but not least, number five. Number five would be, could you possibly. This soften the request and sounds natural, professional, polite. Could you possibly send it by the end of the day? So imagine you're having a conversation and you would like the person to send you the updates of the project, and you say, could you possibly send it by the end of the week? Okay, another way to say please, but with more nuance, with in a different way, to not always repeat yourself, because throughout a whole conversation you may have different requests, and instead of saying please, please, please all the time, you can use that as a tool. All right, so we are already going through an end. I'll just go through them all once. So five alternatives, five ways to say please like a leader. The first one was, would you mind? Would you mind sending me the updated version? Second, if you could share the figures before tomorrow, that would be great. Third, would you be so kind as to confirm receipt of the document? Fourth, I'd I'd appreciate it if you could keep me updated. And number five, we saw, could you possibly send it by the end of the day? Um, oh, well done, Bernard. You wrote, I'd appreciate it if you send me reply of the replay, I guess you meant, of this live. Sure, you will have access to the replay, but great example. Well done. And thanks for your participation. Actually, I really appreciate it, to use the word appreciate in another context. Really, it's nice to interact with you, Bernard. And so the goal of all of this is not just to sound more advanced just for the sake of sounding more advanced. No, the goal is to sound more natural, more fluent, more nuanced, and more intentional also in the way you communicate. Because the more you are going to be familiar with these expressions, you will have a feeling on how to use them, when to use them, and be a bit more precise, maybe in the way you communicate, and more intentional in English. Because, yeah, speaking English like a leader is not about using complicated words, but it's more about communicating with intention, with clarity, nuance, and also emotional intelligence. Um, so, yeah, if you enjoyed this live, please, like it, so I know that you followed. And if you have followed until here, well, thank you. Thank you for watching until here. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll be very happy to talk to you. And my pleasure, Bernard. It was my pleasure to interact with you. I wish you a good day, Bernard, and any other person listening to me, listening to the sound of my voice, whether live or the replay. I'll see you next week at 1 p.m. on Wednesday for another episode of Speak English Like a Leader. Have a great day. Yes, I'm still here because sometimes I check if there are some comments. So it was nice talking to you. Bye. Bye, everyone.